We have always that democracy cannot be transplanted from abroad. Democracy is the product of growth and development, not war and aggression. Democracy is not an export product that can be commercially imported from the West to the East. In an underdeveloped society, imported democracy leads only to a weak and vulnerable government, when commanding generals step into a region, do not expect diplomats to greet them warmly. When war begins, diplomacy tends to end. When sanctions set in, deep hatred for those imposing them also begins. When the atmosphere of the Middle East is securitized, the answer will be of the same nature as well. The interests of the Western countries in our region are tied to the recognition of beliefs and the desires of the people for democratic governance in the region. Our region expects the experience of the creation of Al-Qaeda. The Taliban and modern extremist groups have demonstrated that no one can use extremist groups to counter an opposing state and remain impervious to the consequences of rising extremism. The repetition of these mistakes, despite many costly experiences, is perplexing. Let's recall that Iran had invited everyone to dialogue before the criminal act of September 11th and also called for a world against violence and extremism before the outbreak of the current violent atrocities. Perhaps in the past year, few people could forecast the fire that would rage today. But now, uninhibited violence and extremism presents an imminent threat to the world. It is self-evident that without an accurate understanding of how the current condition came about, we will not be able to find the right solutions. Today again I shall warn against the spread of extremism and the danger posed by the inadequate understanding and incorrect approach to this phenomenon. The Middle East longs for development and is weary of war. It is the natural right of the peoples of the fertile lands of the Middle East to live in peace and prosperity. In the past, colonialism denied them this right, and today the shadow of war and violence threatens their security. There are moderate politicians and elites in our region who enjoy the confidence of their peoples. They are neither anti-Western nor pro-Western. While aware of the role of colonialism in the backwardness of their nations, they are not neglectful of the role of their nations in reaching the development they seek. They do not absolve the West from its misdeeds, but are also aware of their own failings. These leaders can take a position of active leadership by attracting the confidence of the people in their societies and establish the strongest national and international coalitions against violence. The voices of these leaders are the true voices of moderation in the Islamic world. The familiar sound of an Afghan tired of war, an Iraqi victim of extremism, a Syrian fearful of terrorism, and a Lebanese worried about violence and sectarianism. I believe if countries claiming leadership of the coalition do so to continue their hegemony in the region, they would be making a strategic mistake. Obviously, since the pain is better known by the countries in the region, better they can form a coalition and accept to shoulder the responsibility of leadership to counter violence and terrorism. And if other nations wish to take action against terrorism, they must come to their support. I warn that if we do not muster all of our strengths against extremism and violence, and failed to entrust the job to the people in the region who can deliver tomorrow, this world will not be safe for anyone. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, last year I tried to fulfill the role of my country in the realization of peace at both the regional and international levels by putting forward a proposal of a world against violence and extremism, which was met with general support. In the tumultuous and chaotic region of the Middle East, Iran is one of the most tranquil, secure, and stable nations. All the nations of the region have to keep in mind that we are in the same boat. Thus, we need broad cooperation with regard to social and political, as well as security and defense issues, with a view towards reaching common and durable understandings. Had we had greater cooperation and coordination in the Middle East, thousands of innocent Palestinians in Gaza would not have fallen victim to the Zionist regime's aggressions. We in the Islamic Republic of Iran consider interaction and confidence building among states of the region as fundamentally essential for conflict resolution. We support any measure to promote cooperation between Islamic nations to combat extremism, threats, and aggression. And in connection with this, we are prepared to play our permanent, constructive, and positive role. Mr. President, the oppressive sanctions against Iran go on, in continuation of a strategic mistake made against a moderate and independent nation under the current sensitive conditions in our region. During the last year, we have engaged in the most transparent dialogue to build confidence regarding Iran's peaceful nuclear program. We place serious and honest negotiations on the agenda, not in result of sanctions or threats, but rather because of the will of our people. We are of the view that the nuclear issue could only be resolved through negotiations, and those who may think of any other solution would be committing a grave mistake in doing so.